Why was 1923 such a challenging year for the Weimar Republic? In this video, we'll be looking at the problems that faced the Weimar Republic in 1923. And in particular, we'll be focusing on the challenges before 1923, the invasion of the Ruhr and hyperinflation, and the Munich Putsch of 1923. What challenges had the Weimar Republic already faced? Well, we saw that in its early years, the Weimar government faced challenges from both the left in the Spartacist uprising of 1919 and from the right in the Cat Putsch of 1920. Now, with the Spartacist uprising in 1919, the government had to rely on the Freikorps, ex-army soldiers who had put down the communist uprising. Then, in 1920, when the Freikorps led by Kapp had to try to take power for themselves, the Weimar had to rely on the left wing, who had a general strike to oppose the Cat Putsch. So this showed that the Weimar government only survived as the two sides hated each other more than the option or the middle ground of the Weimar government. This didn't stop Weimar politicians from coming for a lot of hate and anger, and they were often assassinated. Probably most famously, Walter Rathenau, the foreign minister, was assassinated in 1922 for his part in signing the hated Treaty of Versailles. These substantial political problems were matched by the economic problems in the Weimar government. The German economy was shattered by the impact and damage of World War I. However, it had no time to recover, as the hated Treaty of Versailles had imposed a huge reparations bill on the people of Germany, which they had to pay for the damage caused by war to the other countries. The £6.6 billion that the treaty said they owed was to be paid for in annual instalments by the German people. This was 2% of Germany's annual output, which they argued they could not afford, particularly in their war-ravaged country. The Weimar Republic did manage to pay the first bill of $50 million in 1921, but by 1922 were struggling to pay the second one and were negotiating for time. Now, these economic problems led to one of the most famous events in this period of time, the invasion of the Ruhr in January 1923. Now, Ebert tried to play for time with the loans and used his position as the president of the Weimar Republic to try and protect his people. However, the French and Belgians needed payment of these loans to pay off their own war debts to countries like America. Now, right next to Belgium and France was the industrial heartland of Germany, known as the Ruhr. So, in January 1923, the French and Belgian troops invaded and occupied the Ruhr. They then started taking what was owed in the form of raw materials. And in fact, this was something which was allowed in the Treaty of Versailles, as Germany had defaulted on their payments. How did the Weimar Republic respond to this invasion? The German government knew they could not fight back against the French and the Belgians. Their army had been crippled by the Treaty of Versailles, and they were in no state to fight these more powerful countries. Therefore, they ordered their people to go on strike and refuse to provide the raw materials for the French and Belgium's occupying troops. The French responded by killing over 100 workers and expelled 100,000 protesters from the region, showing how volatile the situation was. This also led to the halting of work in Germany's most productive industrial region, further crippling the German economy. The economic situation only got worse as the country soon slid into hyperinflation. The lack of goods being produced meant that the German government had nothing to trade to pay off their debts. Instead, they just printed more and more money to try and pay their way out of trouble. This meant, on the one hand, they could start to pay off their loans using this money, but people soon began to realise that this money was worthless as the German economy was collapsing. Prices and wages rocketed, with the cost of a loaf of bread reaching over 200,000 million marks by November of 1923. People's wages, life savings, pensions and homes all became worthless, and the economy completely collapsed. This is perhaps best illustrated by this very famous photo of German children using money as building blocks, as it was worthless. It would have cost more to buy building blocks than to use these massive wads of cash to play with. During this economic chaos, another major event happened, known as the Munich Putsch. You can see a picture of the putsch here, and notice Adolf Hitler leading the German Nazi Party against Weimar forces to try and seize power. However, we know it is inaccurate, as accounts suggest Hitler did not leave the front and ran away when the fighting started. So in November 1923, a small nationalist group, the Nazis, tried to seize power. Allied with General Ludendorff, the war hero, they tried to seize the local government in Bavaria as a start of a revolution and an uprising to overthrow the Weimar government. However, unlike previous uprisings, the Weimar government now had enough forces to hit back and were easily able to break up the attack and arrest its leaders in one day. So this attempt to seize power was an absolute disaster. But Hitler and the leaders only got very light jail sentences and a lot of publicity during the trial. In fact, although the crime was high treason, which in theory should have been a prison sentence for life, Hitler got a very short prison sentence and only actually served 9 months in jail. So in summary, 1923 was a key year. The Weimar government had already survived initial attacks from left and right. They were suffering for political assassinations, including their foreign minister Rapinoe in 1922. They were struggling to pay its reparations bill of 50 million per year and delayed its payment in 1922. This led to French and Belgian troops invading the Ruhr in January 1923 to extract payment in the form of raw materials. The Weimar government ordered its people to go on strike, but this led to violence and economic collapse. Attempts to print money to support the economy led to hyperinflation and the complete collapse of the economy. At this point, the Nazis tried to seize power in the Munich Putsch of 1923. The attempt fails, but Hitler is punished very lightly and receives great publicity.